Hi, so it's been a hot minute since the last time I updated you on how my writing slash my webtoon has been going, but it's 4 months later from my previous video, which I think that means I'm gonna do quarterly updates on how it's going, so every 4 months. But just to give a little bit of a recap so that you don't have to rewatch that video or to update you if you're new here, I told you that I've been wanting to be a writer for quite some time, since probably the end of primary school, yet the ideas only really came to me in the beginning of high school. And with that, I discovered webtoon, and then I was like, you know what, I like art and I like writing. Why don't I also have a webtoon? I was quite ambitious back then. I had a lot of ideas written into this really thick book, and in that really thick book, I decided recently, well, 5 months ago, to relook at it and to decide what is it that I actually want to write now that I'm an adult. And going through it, there were a lot of complex ideas, and so I decided to start small. It's more that this is mainly a romance where the other ideas are fantasy and have magic systems. And to be honest, even though I think those magic systems will be really cool to write one day, I first want to learn to write really complex characters. And I think working on a romance first that doesn't have anything else besides the plot and its character-driven plot is a good stepping stone to actually learning to write complex characters. So that's why I'm writing the one that I'm writing and not the other ideas that I had growing up. So yeah, I'm just getting the ball rolling with me learning to write complex characters before I learn to write complex worlds and magic systems. So in that really thick book I had with all those ideas, last time in the previous video, this video over here, I went and I tore out every single page that related to this idea that I'm working on in this series. And when looking at it, I realized that the ideas were a little immature. I mean, I was 13, maybe 14, possibly 12, and I was just like, yeah, and there was quite some hectic storylines that I was gonna put in there as well, and they just like came out of nowhere. Like they were just there to be edgy, and they didn't have to be. There was no point for them to be in there. So what I did in the previous episode was rewrite every single thing that I wrote when I was a teenager or preteen. And with that, I had a lot of conversations with my friends. They gave me some pointers, but the reason why I'm keeping it to only 2 friends is because I don't want other people's ideas to become the story. I still want my voice to be the story. I still want my ideas, my brain to be a part of it. I just need other people's pointers to help me see how other people are going to see events, or how other people are going to see the motivations behind my characters. So now let me update you on what has happened since the previous episode. Well, one of my friends, the writer friend, I have made him my beta reader. So on Google Docs, you're able to share a document, right? So I've been writing, it's another update I've been writing, so I'm working on the actual script of it. But yeah, so he has become a beta reader, and with it being updated, I'm currently working on chapter 9. I'm like 3/4 through chapter 9, and I want there to be 50 chapters in total. So yeah, I made him my beta reader, and he has been giving me pointers on how things, so basically he's an editor. So on Google Docs, you're able to share the document, and I'm pretty sure you can make someone a commenter, an editor, or a viewer. And I'm pretty sure I made him a commenter. So with an editor, they're able to go on the Google Doc the exact same as you. With a commenter, they're going to have comments on the side of the document. And because of that, I'm going to see if I can put an example here of like his edits or comments on my story. But yeah, so that's been really helpful. To be fair, with the whole beta reader stuff, he's more into grammar than I am. I'm not the greatest at grammar. I'm more the just creative like idea person. I mean, he is too, but I'm just saying that he also has the grammar on him, which I don't. And so he's mainly just been helping me with my grammar. But besides that, other than that, it's been good, and he's the only one. I haven't made my best friend a reader, and I'm also going to make my cousin, and she's going to read it and then tell me what she thinks. So I kind of have 3 beta readers. So yeah, as I said, I'm currently writing, hence the whole beta readers, and I'm currently working on the first draft of it. So my plan is to go from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 50, while my beta reader 1, writer friend, is helping me through it, especially with grammar. My cousin's gonna help me with every 10 chapters, and she's gonna give pointers that she thinks through there. And then there's also then my best friend, who's only gonna give her pointers at the end when I've finished my whole 50 chapters. And then that's gonna be the end. After their commentary, I'm gonna rewrite it again. It's gonna be draft 2. Now obviously the point between draft 1 and draft 2 is that there isn't much of a difference. Like, I'm not trying to change the story here. I'm not making my characters go from a happy, awesome person to a sad, like, you know, I'm not trying to make drastic changes between these 2 drafts. What's gonna happen between these 2 drafts is that I'm just gonna, if there's any loose ends that my cousin's like, oh, like, what happened to this guy? Then I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about him. Then I like add in his story and like his outcome somewhere, wherever it needs to be fit. Or if my best friend is like, yo, like, why did this person do this? It's so out of their character. And I'll be like, yo, why did they do this? And then like those kind of things. Like, it's just to make things more harmonious, to tie loose knots and all that kind of. The previous time when I spoke to you, everything that I sorted and figured out like 4 months ago was that my main female and my male character were sorted out. I knew who they were, I knew their motivations, and I knew where I wanted the story to start with them, and I knew where I wanted it to end with them. I also knew their relatives, like family, and I also knew their close friends. Also, previous time, I knew their why. Like, why is it that my main female and male character do what it is that they do? Why do they act this way? Why do they speak this way? Why do they hold their demeanor in whatever way it is that they hold their demeanor? But this time, since I've last seen you, I've added the friends to that. The friends have their own goals, they have their own whys, they have their own traumas and setbacks, and I've also added the family members into this. So yeah, I've made sure that a lot of my characters, even though I need to like emphasize this, I think that a lot of side characters either have too much going for them, that it's like, are they also a main character? Like, who am I following here? And then you get the opposite end of that spectrum, where they have nothing going for them and they're just a shadow to the main character, helping them when necessary or giving them a setback when necessary. And I've tried to go right in the middle, where they have enough motivation and goals that makes you go, oh, they are their own person with their own story and they have their own thing going for them outside of the main character's life, like normal people are. But I also haven't given them so much of the spotlight that it's taking away from the main characters, because I'm trying to make it that you as the reader, you are following as an outsider into my 2 main characters' lives. In my story, there's 2 POVs. I'm not following just the female lead, and I'm not just following the male lead. I think I've always wondered, what is the, like, because for me, a lot of romance stories follow the female lead, and they don't really follow the male lead, and I've always wondered, what is this guy thinking here? Like, what's going on here? And so that's why I wanted to make sure that the male lead also had his own story and his own things, you know? Like, he's not just there for the female lead, and the female lead's not just there for the male lead. They are their own people. They have their own things going on before they met this person, you know? And so hence why I've tried to make sure that they're quite 50-50. If I'm being completely honest, I think my female lead is like 70% of the story, 60%, and my male lead's like 30-40. And I'm just trying to make sure that it goes into the 50-50, hence why I think it's important for a first draft, a second draft, and a final draft. However, I do think when I do my later books, later in my life, I do think with the whole magic systems and stuff, I'm going to have to add a 3rd and 4th and 5th draft. So yeah, but hence why I'm working on the simple list idea first. This year, I told you that I wanted to understand my story and my plot 100%, and I wanted to have any writing that needed to be written done. AKA, I needed my script writing and my dialogue to be finished and clear. and then next year, or at least like March next year, I will then start working on the drawing aspect of this comic. A little bit of change of plans. I've decided to upload the story on Wattpad, and not just that, any free site where you can read it and there's like ads so that I can get like a cent, is basically where I'm gonna upload this. But basically, by the end of the year, I'm hoping to have my first draft finished. Halfway through next year, I'm hoping to have my second draft finished. And then the end of next year, I hope to have it uploaded onto these two places and maybe more. I don't know, I'll update you when I find more. Maybe you can even put down in the comments some places that I can also put it up where they're not taking copyright and they allow me to put it up on other sites as well. Yeah, so the reason why I'm doing that is because I've learned that I actually quite like writing a lot. And what I mean by that is the description of things and the descriptions of emotions or facial expressions and all that stuff. And I kind of don't want to limit my readers to a webcomic. I want to, for my readers, for my book readers, I want them to also know the story as much as I want my webcomic readers to know the story. And so I'm kind of trying to diversify the target audience by uploading it on two platforms. So first are these sites, maybe more to come later on. And then when it's finished and I have my story written, then I'm gonna work on the script and the dialogue so that I can, and remember, I have now this whole book written. It's gonna be a lot easier to turn this book into a script and dialogue than it is to go from ideas and thoughts to a dialogue and script, right? So I'm going from this book and on Wattpad, I'm going to turn it into a script and dialogue to then, and that will maybe take 6 months. And then from there, I'm going to then start working on the drawing aspect. And then I'm going to upload it on any webcomic site that I feel is appropriate. And that's when it will be finished. When all 50 chapters of this webcomic are up, I will be done. And it will be sorted and I can move on to other ideas. But as much as I've said that I want to move, as much as I've said that I have other ideas and stories and worlds and characters, I want to immerse myself so much in the story that maybe I will hold on to it a lot longer than I am emphasizing I will right now. Maybe 2 or 3 years from now, I change my mind and I think that their story has so much more to tell and 50 chapters turns to 100. I can't speak for future Amy. The only thing I can do is speak for this current one. And this current one is saying I want to end it at 50. So there's going to be 50 chapters on Wattpad. There's going to be 50 chapters on Webtoon and any other sites that I decide. And that's gonna be that. For all I know, maybe it's 100 chapters on Webtoon because maybe there's so much information in a chapter on Wattpad that I'm like, oh, okay, I need to split it into 2 parts and therefore it's part 1, part 2 of episode 1 on Webtoon. So I don't know how that's gonna end up going. But yeah, that's basically the big change and the update. I'm 9 chapters in. Well, I'm still working on chapter 9. I kind of already know my whole story. And I am working on the book before I'm working on the webcomic. So, I don't know what I'm going to title this video because, I mean, originally this was going to be just a webcomic, but I decided to do both. So, who knows? But I'm now going to go write with my radio friend. I'm going to hang out at his and we're going to watch some stuff, but then we're also going to obviously write. And I'm looking forward to it because I want to finish chapter 9 and I want to go on to chapter 10. That's my goal today, is to get to chapter 10. before I let you go with this video, I have one last tip to give you when it comes to writing your own story, or at least an update on how I'm learning on how to write my story. That is, podcasts are your friends when it comes to learning to write. So for me, I'm currently a fine arts student, and because of that, I have to obviously draw a bunch. And when doing that, listening to music can become a little repetitive. And because of that, I decided, let me give podcast a try. And when I did that, I came across a discovery. There are authors out there that have decided to make podcasts so that they can give out the little secrets on how to make your own novels, and how to write a good character, and how to create chemistry, romantic chemistry between two characters. And because of that, and because of this discovery, I've been listening to that also now in tangent with music when doing my art. And so I thought, if you had those moments where you're doing your dishes, you're cleaning your room, what so it is that you do, and you also want to write a novel, then give these podcasts a try. I've given 2 down in the link description that I am personally using. I'm not saying I've listened to every single one of theirs, so I can't comment on every single one of theirs, but there have been 1 or 2 decent ones that I'm like, I think what they say is pretty solid. But yeah, that's basically everything, and I'll see you in the next video / I'll see you in the next update.